Welcome to the Rescue, Rebuild, Restore podcast, where we equip church leaders and compassionate Christians to serve the hurting with spirit-led wisdom. I'm your host, Suzanne Burns, author of the book, Rescue, Rebuild, Restore, Compassion That Works. Together, we're going to explore how to rescue body and soul, rebuild spirit and will, and restore lives through the Holy Spirit's power. Because every person deserves to be seen, healed, and loved. Let's dive into today's episode and discover how to live out this calling. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Rescue, Rebuild, Restore podcast. I'm your host, Suzanne Burns. I am so excited to be here. I love this podcast. I love sharing my thoughts and my perspectives with you guys week in and week out. And so hopefully you're enjoying it as well. So today I wanted to talk about, I'm not even sure what to call it, the notes that I have in my phone where I keep my random podcast thoughts is when the unsaved act unsaved. So maybe that is the most appropriate title for this podcast episode regardless. So just to give you a little bit of reference, a little bit of perspective. So not only do I run a nonprofit where the vast majority of our clients coming in are unsaved or, because we're in the South, they consider themselves Christian. Right? I went to church one time. I went to vacation Bible school one time with my grandmother when I was 9. So of course I'm saved. Of course I'm a Christian. Or they've been in and out of 50 bajillion rehab programs where they've heard the gospel message. They've heard the higher power message from like AA or NA, Narcotics Anonymous, things like that. And so they have a semblance of Christianity, especially here in the South. So that's kind of what I deal with on a day-to-day basis. But yet also, I'm a church member, and so we regularly are reaching out to unchurched populations. So what brought all of this about? My church owns a couple of little ball fields about, maybe a quarter mile down the road from where the church is located. My husband is kind of he's kind of over them. He does the mowing and manages a lot of the, repairs, maintenance, whatever. But also my husband is very well known in the softball community locally. He's been playing for, 40 years. He plays travel. He's played professionally. He's played church league. He's played open men's. He's played tournaments, like everything. If you have played softball in my community or around it for at least a year, 2 years, you know my husband. Or you at least know the sound of his voice. But anyways, so we, the church, have rented our ball fields to a fella who is hosting some Friday night tournaments. So, of course, my husband is there hanging out, making sure everything's going well, and also meeting and greeting and seeing all his ball buddies from the last 20, 30, 50 years. The challenge is that, of course, we're a church that owns this property, and so it's non-alcoholic. Well, that is not the common patterns of a ball tournament, a Friday night, late night ball tournament. So it's going to take a little bit of time for that culture to change. That was the word I was looking for. That is not the culture of these Friday night softball tournaments. So we've only just done the second one. So this is a very new relationship and very new systems, right? So my husband came in super late Friday night, early Saturday morning after the tournaments. I was not up. But Saturday, then, as we're talking about it, and he's telling me about everything that was going on, he was talking about how stressed out some of the people were from the church who were running the concession stand because of the vape pens that smelled like they had THC in them, the beer cans that were open. And of course, we have signage everywhere, but they don't pay no attention. Nobody pays any attention unless you get onto them. And so my husband was telling me about, I had to get onto this one about it. And then that one came up later, drinking like an open can in the moment. And I had to get onto him. And then they're apologizing and like all of this, like the guests, the people coming to play in this tournament. are very respectful when they're told. The problem is that the church people are very freaked out. And these are people, like specifically, these are people who personally have a history with the world, right? So this is not your homeschool moms who have never experienced anything whatsoever. These are people who have. And so I found it really surprising that they were the ones who were freaking out the most. And it reminded me of a section in my book where I talk about empathy versus sympathy, and that the people who have the experience from the world can all too often be the ones who have the shortest fuse with people that are still in the world. Whereas if you have no experience, then a lot of times you actually are able to offer a greater timeline of grace. Maybe not better, or, you can offer grace longer. Than you have more patience with people who are still in active addiction, who are still in old patterns of sin, than people who have already conquered that. And I think there's two reasons for that. And one of which I talk about in the book is the sense that I survived it, I came out of it, so you should be able to also. But the issue that I think all too often occurs, and may have been part of it, so there's also this sense that I need my sobriety protected. I don't think it was specifically for these particular people, but where I'm thinking about it now is in some of my clients. So in addition to this happening Friday night, earlier in the week at my ministry, we had a situation where one of our staff went to, who coincidentally happened to be my daughter-in-law, who is very innocent and sheltered, even though she's a broader thinker, right? But she's also very young. She's 19. And so she went to go pick up one of our clients from IOP, which stands for Intensive Outpatient. Well, yeah, intensive outpatient is what it stands for, but it's therapy. So it's post-rehab continuation of therapy before they're ready to be kind of, released. Like your recovery is assured and you are off the clock, and it also happens to coincide with the exact time frame that insurance is willing to pay for. So anyway, so she's picking our client up from IOP, and which is an outpatient, again, program. So the client stands outside waiting for somebody to come and get her. And so she gets in the car with little Stevie and immediately says, I used. And so that's a good thing, right? So she didn't try to hide it. That's a bad thing that she used. It's also a bad thing that she used literally right outside the rehab facility where she's getting the therapy to not use. So that's also very concerning, right? So she then immediately had to go into rehab again. We had to handle this issue. She had picked up what she thought was fentanyl from somebody else that's in her IOP program out on the sidewalk. And so that tells you the typical, what do I call it? That tells you what IOP tends to look like, right? The common pattern. Sober living houses tend to be similar formats. We work really, really hard to keep our girls protected from other people who could potentially offer them drugs. And, in a moment of weakness, that's what you do. She had made it multiple weeks before this point. So she told us that there were plenty of other times that she'd been offered, but today was the day she fell. So that in and of itself is kind of a win in the longevity of her own willpower. It demonstrates to her that she can't operate by willpower alone, right? But nevertheless, so I'm trying to paint a picture here so that you can understand that when she fell, when she succumbed to her desire to use, that set off a firestorm within the rest of the clients of a fear, of desire to use themselves, of fear that they might have a desire to use, and kind of all of that. It re-triggered them that I am not stable. Now, it's also setting off a completely different type of firestorm with the staff who are all, and of course, obviously everybody is grieving and worried about the client specifically. And like that's also a layer of what we're dealing with. So combine those two pictures, right? The clients that are in kind of freak out mode because I don't know that I will be able to maintain my stability. I don't know that I can maintain my process, my work towards not only getting stable, but getting custody back of my kids, getting moving through the program and getting jobs and getting stabilized, getting outside employment and all those kinds of things. Suddenly, everything I've been working so hard for is in jeopardy because I saw this other person who is in a similar situation to me, I saw her fall. So I don't think that was the root issue of what was going on with my fellow church members. However, I do think that is often a very common theme. The thing that I think was more common is also a form of fear, but it's more of fear of the opinion of others and really a protectiveness for the reputation of the church, right? All of which sounds appropriate, right? I don't want people drinking on our property. I don't want the church's name to be embarrassed. Or what if they are driving home and they're drunk driving and something happens and it comes back that they were here on our property drinking alcohol, even though we were not the ones providing it. And in fact, we have many, many signs everywhere saying that no alcohol and no tobacco products are permitted on property. I would assume there's also some saying illegal drugs, but I need to check and make sure that we have the comprehensive signage now that I'm saying that out loud. Anyways, that's not important right now. So my point is there's the protection of the church's reputation, there's the protection of the legal ramifications, but then there's also that sense that I don't know what people would think about us as a church, as a team, as what, fill in the blank, if they have I don't know what to think about this church if I'm seeing alcohol around. What if other church members come to visit and they're like, why is he drinking a Michelob? Why is all of this happening? We have a drunken bar fight in the middle of third base at the church's property. All of those things, like none of that actually happened, but I mean, I've actually seen, my husband and I have been married 23 years. I've actually seen more physical fights at church league than I have at open league or at tournaments. So, I mean, on one hand, that this is a good thing, right? That this is protecting our reputation, protecting the ministry, protecting the services, protecting the people, protecting the congregation, but also what I was telling my husband Saturday morning, because he was trying to explain this to me, that he had been trying to talk to the church people to just relax, to just give it some time, to just calm down, to just let him, like they were getting so worked up. And he's like, let me handle it. Let me talk with them. And every time he talked to them, they immediately poured everything out. I mean, he has great respect in the softball community. But he was also saying 97% of the people out here do not darken any church doors come Sunday morning. This is a prime opportunity. And he said that one of the things that people would come to him and be like, this is so great. We really appreciate the being able to use these ball fields again. Because, like, long story, that's not important for this podcast. But they were always just so grateful and courteous. And my husband's response was, hey, if you really feel that way, come join me for church one Sunday. I know Pastor would love to see you. And of course, when Pastor was there, and during the time he was there, Tim's taken him around and introducing him to all his buddies, and the vast majority of which he only knows nicknames rather than real names, which, I mean, that's ball for you, right? You can work together, play together for 20 years and not know their real name. until you start getting weird Facebook friend requests and you're like, who is this? And you go cyber stalking and you're like, oh, that's Cornbread. Oh, that's T-Man. Oh, that's whatever. So anyways, boys are funny. So, but my point is, like, Tim was straddling those two worlds. Like, he completely understands the culture of the people who were coming as guests, and also recognized the challenges of the church that was sponsoring it all, right? So the thing is, what my response then to Tim was, he's telling me all of these stories, was that we can't be surprised when unsaved people act unsaved, or in the South we might say unchurched, because everybody thinks they're saved. Because like I said earlier, I went to vacation Bible school one time with my grandma when I was 9. Hey, I'm good. Me and Jesus, we're good. Or we met in rehab, or we met in jail, and we're good. I'm still struggling, but I'm just glad he loves me, right? That's the general gist of most people in the South who are unchurched. So, or at least the ones I know. So that phrase, though, we can't be surprised when the unsaved act unsaved, really resonated with Tim. And so I was really glad that made sense to him and gave him some language to be able to talk to the pastor and the other people who are running the concessions every week. Because it is not surprising that these guys would come to a ball field that looks like a ball field, would come to a tournament that acts like a tournament, and assume that everything is as it's always been. Therefore, we're going to bring the 12-pack. Therefore, we're going to have more in the car. It's not unexpected from their cultural perspective. Now, obviously, I am not in any way saying that it would be okay for them to continue drinking. Like, that's not the point at all. It's just not surprising that they brought it. What would be surprising, or at least unfortunate, is if they fought about it. Like, how could you? What are you talking about? All those kinds of things. But that didn't happen because my husband has a great relationship and a great reputation in the community. So it was not hard for him to say, dude, you got to pour that out. And then they obeyed him. But the thing is, what I was trying to explain to my husband, I wasn't trying to explain to him. I was trying to give him language so that he can advocate with the church elders that this partnership needs to continue, and we just need to give it more time for the culture to change, for people to recognize that if you're coming to these ball fields, if you're coming to Harvest Fields, then that is owned by a church and there is no alcohol permitted. Even though there's 50 bajillion signs, right? That's utterly irrelevant. They're not ever going to read signs any more than anybody ever reads signs anywhere else. But we have them posted for insurance purposes, of course, obviously, and for backup, right? For evidence. But it's that sense that, of course, they are acting appropriately for their known culture. It will take time for them to learn a new way. Now, I don't think it'll take very long. I think we've had 2 tournaments so far, and I think within 1 or 2 more, and we will start to see that shift more fully and completely. The team leadership is starting to know that what's up. The rules are starting to kind of make their way down. Now, you're always going to have brand new players that have pickup players on this team. Even though the team may have been here before, you may have 1 or 2 new players that have not. So this is going to be a permanent issue. It's going to be fairly low. Like, it's not going to be super high. Like, even the issues that he had Friday night was like maybe 4 or 6 tops. Like, still, when you've got 6 teams, each of which have 12 to 15 players, plus their spouses, their friends, their buddies, that's a lot of people, but still the percentage of actual issues was well below like even 5%. Y'all know I'm not good at mental math, so maybe, I don't know, 1, 2, 3% tops. And it will continue to decrease the more people are familiar. The thing is that we in the church have to give them time to recognize that this is something different. We have a prime opportunity to be able to speak into the lives of all of these men from their late teens to their 60s who are actively unchurched. We have an amazing opportunity to get them comfortable with church people, which then gets them comfortable with a church building, which then eventually gets them comfortable with entering that church building. Why would we want to ruin that too fast? Why would we want to ruin that? What salvations might we miss out on? What eternal life change might not happen if we are so fearful, prideful, protective, fill in the blanks, of seeing it, of participating in a thing that attracts the unsaved, right? Like literally that's what we're doing, is reaching out to the unsaved. Why are we surprised when they act unsaved? Why are we surprised? It's like we do several events there every year. One is a festival of trees. Excuse me, that's my event. The fall festival is what I'm trying to say. The Halloween fall festival. We do that. We do the Easter egg hunt, and then we do like a 4th of July celebration. After every one of those, we find beer cans in the garbage. We find somebody reports, one of the church members somewhere reports having smelled pot, THC, which in these vapes that you buy at the gas station, it's probably the synthetic stuff. Nobody ever knows. Like you don't see somebody rolling a joint. That's obvious and easy to pinpoint and still illegal in Tennessee, even though it's not in many other states. But the synthetic stuff that you can buy at the gas station, it accomplishes the same things. There's even gas station heroin, which is I need to do a whole nother podcast on that kind of stuff. But my point is, when we do these outreach events, we are not surprised when we get people that we have been reaching out to who need us, who need Jesus, who need the understanding of the Holy Spirit and what holiness means and all of that. Why would we stop doing the fall festival because we smelled some kind of a THC infused something or other, or because there were beer cans in the trash afterwards, right? That's literally who we're trying to attract, are people who don't know Jesus. And I think all too often we in the church world, like I see this so many times in ministry, bus ministry, a church will start a bus ministry to pick up kids from the local apartment complexes, right? Well, then you get a little 4-year-old that comes in saying MF and like all of these terrible words and in Sunday school and or on the playground. And then the little homeschool kids are going home like, Mommy, what is the F? What does this word mean? And you're like, oh, that's not good. That's really, really bad. Well, then you start saying, well, let's not invite that kid, or let's not go to that particular apartment complex anymore, which protects your children in the church building, sure, but that's not the point of the bus ministry. Those children are going to be consigned to never know the love of Jesus, to never know what true godliness and holiness means. They don't know that those words are wrong because those words are normal in their culture, which I mean in that apartment complex, in poverty. I'm not talking about race or ethnicity. That can have its own culture, but that's not what I'm referring to. The thing is in that low socioeconomic poverty subculture, which again transcends race, transcends ethnicity, these are common things. Alcohol is common. Foul language is common. Cigarettes, pot, the synthetic junk that you buy at the gas station, all of this is common and routine. It is what they build their culture around. It is what they build their relationships around, their conversations around. I'm not saying it's good, not by any stretch. I'm saying that's the point. That's the point. They don't know that there's another option until they're shown another option, and also until they're welcomed into that other option, right? They have to be welcomed into the church world. We have to be able to see, to demonstrate to them that you are welcome here, that you can do this, that it belongs to you also. I cannot tell you how many people I have talked to over the years, one of which was my husband not too awful long ago, who said, yeah, well, it's good and all that Jesus forgives, but I've done too much. I've done too many things that he can't forgive. Now, you and I know it. Well, I hope you do. You're about to know because I'm about to tell you. But that is not true. It is not possible for you to have done anything for Jesus to not be able to forgive. But if you don't know that, and if the people around you and the people that are representing Jesus, physically, the ones that you see, if they are not welcoming you, if they are judging you, now, again, this is not acceptance of their actions. It's accepting of them as people who need to be sanctified, who need to be taught how to be more fully conformed into the image of Jesus. If the people of the church aren't willing to give you that time and that teaching, then why would you think that Jesus would? Why would you? To me, it makes perfect sense that if the people that I see representing Jesus won't accept me, won't welcome me, won't sit next to me, won't talk to me, then why would I expect Jesus to? Even though that's literally what Jesus did, right? He spent way more time and had way more fun talking with the sinners and inviting them into the kingdom of God than he ever did talking to the saved and sanctimonious. Now, which side of this line are we going to fall on? At what point are we going to accept that the unsaved act unsaved, and that's why we're here? I don't have any problem sitting next to any of my girls and they're cussing. Now, you got to understand, again, we're in the South and they know we're a faith-based ministry. So they're not just cussing just as part of their language, right? Now, you get out on a ball field and in a non-church owned ball field, people are going to cuss that's just part of their language, right? Those are just the words they know. And that's why that little 4-year-old from the bus ministry, that's why he talks like that, because that's common language where he comes from. Within his household, within his little sub-community there in the apartment complex or trailer park or whatever. My girls, because they know this, they're only going to be cursing when there is an actual problem, when their emotions are so heightened that they can't self-regulate their language, right? So I know that the issue is not that she just said the F word. The issue is the emotions that she's struggling with. My salvation is more than strong enough to hear a handful of naughty words now and again. My salvation is more than strong enough to see someone else drinking alcohol because they don't know any different yet. My salvation is more than strong enough. Jesus is more than powerful enough to manage all of that. Where we end up with trouble is when we forget that. Or we're so busy trying to protect somebody else. Oh, I can't let pastor see this. Or, oh, what if one of the church people sees this? Or I can't let my kids see it, whatever. I appreciate the desire to protect the people you care for, but also not at the expense of someone else's salvation. If we really truly understood how terrible and how permanent eternal damnation really was, we would be a lot more willing to suffer a lot more trouble in order to make sure that someone doesn't have to suffer for eternity. And I think that there was something lost when we moved away from the hellfire and damnation preaching. Now, I don't appreciate condemnation, and I don't think that Jesus was never a condemner like that, but he did talk an awful lot about the horrors of eternal hell and how you really want to avoid that. How can we focus on that part? How can we focus on, I know you're not pretty and clean. I know you don't know how to talk right. I know you don't know all the churchified language. You don't know the systems. You don't know any of the song lyrics. It is okay. You are more than welcome to come into the church building. We will not judge you. It is okay that you have face tattoos. It is okay even that some of those tattoos may be naughty words themselves, and it may take some time. And sometimes they're just not sleeves long enough to block out the tattoos that you want to mask. That is perfectly fine. My salvation isn't dependent on that, and neither is theirs. Their salvation is dependent upon hearing. And hearing comes from the Word of God. And where else are they going to hear it? Who else is going to tell them if not us? All right, that's it for today. Let's talk about something different next time. I need to write that down. I do need to tell you guys about gas station heroin and all the other crazy synthetic stuff that your kratom and crazy stuff that your people are taking. And it could be your kids, you know? It's wild right now. It's wild. That whole line of synthetic anything is very poorly regulated yet. And so there's a lot that's in there, and there's a lot of people that are buying stuff and they have no idea how devastating it can be for them physically. And they're not even buying it for that purpose. Like people that buy gas station heroin probably are buying it because it's gas station heroin. People that say, oh, this looks cool, or this looks like another energy drink, or another this, or another, just to try another flavor for the vape. And then they end up with it and they have no idea what to do because it's devastated them in an instant. So that needs to be another upcoming podcast. But for now, I appreciate you guys being here at the Rescue, Rebuild, Restore podcast. If you have questions or comments, drop them in the comment section below, because I would love to hear your thoughts on how we love the least of these wisely. Thank you for joining me on the Rescue, Rebuild, Restore podcast. I pray this episode has equipped you to serve with greater clarity and compassion. If you're ready to go deeper, grab a copy of Rescue, Rebuild, Restore Compassion That Works on either Amazon or at rescuerebuildrestore.com. And while you're there, you can also join our Rescue, Rebuild, Restore Compassion Collective.